Another customer told me, well, can I suggest that you just always have the asparagus soup? I said, well, the thing is the mushroom soup's really good. And so is the, zucchini and we make a cauliflower soup. So it's really kind of the same method I use and just swap out what the main vegetable is. And you could do this at home. So, if you roast up the vegetables very nicely, so you take your time, use a little bit of olive oil and some seasonings and, roast it up to the point that you would want to just eat it, you can then just throw it in the blender with some vegetable broth and you have soup.
So that's the bonus tip for my guests. We now have the secret, super simple, super healthy way to make soup at home.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Welcome to episode 25 of Eat Your Greens with Dr. Black. You're in for a treat today, especially if you're a Central Texas local. My motivation, my driving force behind creating this podcast is to give my listeners, and that's you, the information and tools you need to not only eat a healthy diet rich in whole plant-based foods, but also to enjoy those foods, to find joy and thrive on a healthy, whole food, plant-based diet. And this episode is going to do just that. If you find yourself in the New Braunfels area looking for a yummy alternative to barbecue or German brats and schnitzel, you're in luck. Today, I'm talking to Mike Singleton, the owner of Naturally Café in Gruene, Texas. Now, if you're not a local, that's Gruene, Gruene, Texas. It's a cute little town just outside of New Braunfels on the edge of the Texas Hill Country. Mike shares his expertise in creating mouth-watering, healthy meals from scratch. Who says healthy eating can't be delicious? Keep listening, and next time you're out and about in New Braunfels, head a few miles west and check them out. So today I'm joined by Mike Singleton. He is the owner of the Naturally Café in New Braunfels, actually Gruene, Texas. New Braunfels / Gruene. If you know the area, you know what I'm talking about. And I had the opportunity to eat in his cafe a month or two ago, and I had a really delicious vegan sandwich. And I thought, okay, I really need to highlight the Naturally Café on the show. So, Mike, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time to drive up here and be a guest on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about the Naturally Café, and then we'll get into some more details.
Yeah. Well, Naturally Café has been around for over 11 years. I actually bought it from my neighbor about 3.5 years ago. And her passion was exactly what you're saying, trying to make sure that people had healthier options. In New Braunfels, it's all about piled high onion rings and barbecue and that kind of stuff. So, and we have sandwiches and smoothies and salads and soups and quiche and juices and things like that. So,
and I understand everything except the bread on your menu is house-made.
Pretty much. So there are a few items where we might grab something out of a jar to mix with other things. So it's not like absolutely scratch made, but for the most part, we are making everything from scratch.
That really makes a difference with the freshness and the flavor, I think.
Absolutely. But also just, my philosophy of trying to avoid processed food as much as possible. I feel like sometimes people come in and they think it's like not a crazy health food store environment. The title naturally makes some visitors to the region, when they come in, they think it's going to be that way. And they're a little bit disappointed that it's not, smelling like patchouli and hardcore, but it's really so that there's options for everyone.
And I appreciate that because there are very few places that have vegan options. You have to really be creative sometimes and being that customer that wants everything modified. So to be able to just walk into a cafe and have ready-made options for me. And you said avoid processed food, unprocessed. And that is something that I talk about a lot on my show, the importance of the whole part of the whole food plant-based diet. Now, just to be clear for the listeners, it's not a strictly vegan. I think you made that point, but I just want to emphasize it. You do have some meat options, some cheese, and then you have the vegan options. And did I see you have some gluten-free options as well?
Yes, we have lots of gluten-free options. So I'll give you an example of something that's not a vegan item, but it's vegetarian. We have a quiche. And years ago, Jackie, the previous owner, she used to make these lovely quiches and spend hours making these beautiful crusts. And then she would watch people just scraping and leaving the crust behind. And so she said, well, I'll just make a crustless quiche. And people love our crustless quiche, either because they're vegetarian or because they're gluten-free. And by it being crustless, there's no gluten. So
perfect.
But all our desserts are gluten-free. We always all our soups. Pretty much everything except the bread is gluten-free. So, and then we have gluten-free bread.
So you do, because you have sandwiches,
right.
So they can get a gluten-free
So the only
bread.
challenge is, I know there are gluten-free plant-based breads available. We just haven't found one that the customers would tolerate.
I can believe that.
I tried one. And this woman who had been coming every other day forever eating gluten-free sandwiches was like, please go back to your normal gluten-free bread. I said, well, it has eggs in it. And some people get upset about that. But
I have a family member with celiac, so I know the range that you can get with the gluten-free products. Some are really good and some really aren't. And I suspect there's only so much you can take out and retain the texture and the flavor. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm not a baker. My sister is a pastry chef, but something about making the gluten-free bread, the eggs are necessary to get the texture right, I guess. Because, the one we got that was plant-based, it just kind of fell apart.
You mentioned your soups, and I know you have a vegan soup of the day. What are some of the different types of vegan soups that you offer for your soup of the day?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of one of the areas I get to play around a little bit because I haven't changed that many things since I bought the restaurant. We rotate our vegan soup, and so I like to try different things. So right now we have an Italian lentil soup. It's got lentils and beans and vegetables, carrot, celery, that kind of onions, a little bit of spinach, veggie broth, and it's fantastic. That's a chunky soup. So we typically have these kind of pureed soups, and I just rotate out what the vegetable is and just roast up a ton of whatever it is. So let's say it's mushroom. I just buy a ton of mushrooms, roast them all up, and then we start putting things in the blender with the veggie broth and the seasonings and roasted onions, things like that. And so I just can easily just swap out mushrooms for asparagus, for instance. And people go crazy over their asparagus soup. It's kind of funny because I keep thinking people will be turned off by the idea of asparagus soup. But I guess the kind of people who come in to naturally love vegetables because they see it on the sign and they think, oh, yeah, asparagus.
Heading in.
And another customer told me, well, can I suggest that you just always have the asparagus soup? I said, well, the thing is the mushroom soup's really good. And so is the, zucchini and we make a cauliflower soup. So it's really kind of the same method I use and just swap out what the main vegetable is. And you could do this at home. So, if you roast up the vegetables very nicely, so you take your time, use a little bit of olive oil and some seasonings and, roast it up to the point that you would want to just eat it, you can then just throw it in the blender with some vegetable broth and you have soup.
So that's the bonus tip for my guests. We now have the secret, super simple, super healthy way to make soup at home.
Absolutely.
Awesome. What about some of your other menu items? Tell me a few of the most popular items that you have besides the quiche and the soup.
Yeah, so sandwiches are our main event. I like to think of it as a sandwich shop. And all of our sandwiches are grilled on a panini press. The most popular ones are not the vegan sandwiches. So there's a club sandwich and a chicken bacon sandwich and a chicken salad sandwich. But then, we try to do kind of riffs on these things to have vegan versions. So for instance, the chicken salad is very popular. So what I did was I took that same recipe that Jackie came up with and that everybody's crazy about and substituted chickpeas and substituted vegan mayo instead of regular mayo and substituted agave nectar instead of honey. And lo and behold, you have a vegan sandwich. to give you another example, so BLT is very popular. So I figured, well, I'll make my own plant-based bacon. It's too expensive to buy it already packaged and made. So I experimented around with different recipes. I tried using just firm tofu that I pressed. But I finally came across tempeh as a better option just because it's a little firmer and it stays together. And I also actually think tempeh is healthier than regular tofu because it's fermented product. And so the plant-based folks that come in, they love that tempeh bacon BLT, and it is really good. I will say the tempeh, like by itself, the tempeh bacon, it is not that great. But once you put it on a sandwich with the lettuce and tomato and the vegan mayo, it's really good.
That's what I had when I went in.
Okay, great.
And I did enjoy it quite a bit. I have played around with tempeh at home. I like tempeh when I go somewhere that it's made by someone who knows what they're doing. When I've tried to make it at home, it's been really hit or miss. And so what's your secret? If it's not too much of a secret, can you share how you prepare your tempeh to make bacon?
Essentially, we marinate it 24 hours in a combination of tamari. Well, we use tamari instead of soy sauce because I want it to be gluten-free. Right. So there's sort of a consideration in a lot of things. Like before you make a recipe, like make sure there's substitutes. But there's other seasonings and there's vinegar and, But the other key is to roast it up. Like we use a commercial oven, but actually a lot of people, including myself at home, have air fryers. And an air fryer is a very useful tool. The convection oven that we have, the commercial one, is essentially a very large air fryer. So having a sort of basket type instead of a pan where they're sitting flat, where the air can get underneath, that's going to help you achieve the right texture as well.
Well, maybe that's what I'll try next time because I've talked about this before. I'm kind of a kitchen minimalist and I held out for a long time on air fryers, but I had the opportunity to try one out and it took me exactly 2 times trying it before I headed off to Target and bought my own.
Right.
And I really like how it makes tofu. I like cooking my tofu in the air fryer now.
Yes.
So I'm going to try the tempeh next. Good. Maybe I'll finally get the tempeh right at home.
Yeah, you're not going to get that same kind of texture because I say fried, but it's air fried. Tofu is really good in the air fryer. I mean, roasting cauliflower, you can fry up cauliflower in the air fryer.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful tool. It's a quick funny story. I have a friend who builds homes. His own home, of course, is fabulous, and he has a kitchen with every extra you can possibly imagine. So I go to see his house, and he's like, oh, yeah, the kitchen. But here, let me show you what really the big deal in this kitchen is. And he pulls out his $180 air fryer. He's like, this is all I cook with. And I'm like, you got $80,000 worth of appliances in here, and you're telling me you only use the air fryer.
Speaks for itself.
Yep.
Absolutely. One of your vegan options is vegan cheese. I saw you can substitute on some of your items. What kind of vegan cheese do you use? What's it made out of?
So it's called Via Life. I'm not terribly happy with it, but I think it tastes good. Essentially, it's coconut oil and nutritional yeast. And it seems to be what most of them are made of. Like when I make, for instance, we make a broccoli cheese soup. I don't use those slices of cheese, because they have stabilizers and all kind of stuff in them. Just use the nutritional yeast to sort of achieve that cheesy taste. And the other problem with the vegan cheese, it's challenging because I said we grill all the sandwiches so the cheese is melted. That cheese takes a long time to even sort of melt.
Yes, it's a common problem with vegan cheeses.
So, if somebody's having, the other thing that takes a long time is the gluten-free bread takes longer to grill up. So it's like a gluten-free plant-based cheese sandwich. It's like, okay, that sandwich is going to be on the grill for a long time.
And I have tried that brand of vegan cheese, and I agree, it's okay.
Yeah.
When I look at vegan cheeses, there seem to be 2 categories. There's the coconut oil-based ones, and then there's the cashew-based ones.
Right.
And they both have their pros and cons. So I do think vegan cheeses have come a long way. They may still have a long way to go. There is a vegan cheese shop in Austin, and I hope to speak to them to get them on the podcast. They have, when I ate there, it blew my mind how good their cheeses were. They're all cashew based, but they come with a hefty price tag. It was not a cheap sandwich. So I think being able to move that to more public consumption on a larger scale, the price point's going to have to come down.
Speaking of cashews, so one thing about if you use a product with cashews, you have to think about the fact that some people are allergic to tree nuts. So in the restaurant business, it's always tricky. So for instance, we use a lot of cashews making the soups. So that's sort of the cream substitute. So soak cashews overnight and then throw them in the blender and you make the cashew cream. Well, I didn't used to advertise on the soup sign contains nuts or contains cashews, but somebody called up, having a problem because they were allergic. And they say, well, was there nuts in something, and we're like, well, it's in the soup. And they're like, oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Right. You do have
so
to be
now
cautious.
I say it, it's written on there, it contains nuts, make sure everybody knows.
Yes, that's wise. The other menu item that caught my eye that I think a lot of people like are the smoothies and the juices. And one of the things I appreciated was that you don't add any extra types of sweetener, whether it's sugar or artificial sweetener. So tell me a little bit more about your different flavors of smoothies and juices.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a big distinctive that we have over any place I know in town. But my kids, to my horror, they love the big chain smoothie places because they want all the sugar. And they even hide behind the counter when they're making the smoothie. I kind of poked my head back there. What are they putting in there? And they had a big scoop. It looked like an ice scooper, huge scoop of powder. And I said, well, what is that? What's that? And the teenager working behind the counter said, oh, sugar. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, there's literally a giant scoop of sugar in the smoothie. So, and then there's ice in it. We don't use ice either. So we have frozen fruit, and then we just add either the almond milk or coconut milk or apple juice or whatever the liquid is. And if people want to, we could just do water. But the idea is to make it very simple. So for instance, the first menu item under smoothies is the mango tango. It's just mango, strawberries, and almond milk. Nothing else. Now you can add other things. You could put, at no charge, you could put spinach, you could put honey, you could put, and then there's things we do charge for like chia seeds or protein powder. And we do have plant-based protein powder. So the most popular smoothie though is the Chunky Monkey smoothie, which is bananas and cocoa and peanuts and dates and almond milk. And it is really good.
Sounds
it
amazing.
Tastes like a candy bar. Considering how, if you look at the ingredients, it's not that unhealthy. I mean, dates have a high sugar content, but at least we're using dates. It tastes amazing. I mean, people love it. So you have people come in getting large chunky monkeys. I'm like, that's a lot of food.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could finish a large one. The other thing we have that's plant-based are brownies. So I always kind of laugh because, my wife made this little label that says guiltless desserts. I said, well, I don't know about guiltless. I mean, it's mostly oil and sugar. It's just there's no animal products in it. We use zucchini instead of eggs. It's gluten-free, so we're using the gluten-free flour instead of regular flour.
If you're going to splurge on a dessert, that's the one to go for.
I guess so. It's a splurge. We'll call it that. I kind of laugh about that because the thing is people eat plant-based for different reasons. Some people are doing it for health reasons. Other people are doing it for environmental reasons or moral reasons or whatever it is. So those people don't care as much about it being healthy. They just want something good that, they're not going to feel bad about eating. So, there's some things like that. Not everything's absolutely healthy.
Well, moderation. But it's nice to have that option when you want to splurge on a dessert, but you still want to stick to your eating goals. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So right now, as it stands, I know you're only open weekdays. Any plans on opening up on the weekend?
Yeah, probably Saturdays. So we used to be open on Saturday. We were for years. And then the COVID experience was sort of a multi-year, and the difficulties sort of evolved. So at first it was the distancing and the masking and the difficulties with that. The second half of the COVID experience was the inability to hire anyone, and it was tough. So that was one of our ways of dealing with it, was to stop being open on Saturday. So I need to open again on Saturday. The thing is, I've just gotten kind of spoiled and used to not having to work on Saturday. So hopefully we will get there. I'd like to actually start by the time summer rolls around. Summers are obviously busy season. It's true for everybody in New Braunfels because it's sort of a tourist town.
It's the opposite in San Marcos because
is that right?
all the college kids leave.
Oh, they're gone, yeah.
So it's not a ghost town, but it's a lot less busy in the summer. And you can always tell when they come back because all of a sudden traffic is worse.
I'll have to remember that and come here. There's a restaurant I love in San Marcos that has some good plant-based options. It's North Street.
Mm-hmm. The Katz brothers. Mm-hmm.
I don't know the owners, but I've been there several times.
Yes, they own a few things here in town.
Okay.
Yeah, they own Pie Society, North Street, and then the bar adjacent to it, Zelix, and
Zelix.
They own Dos Gatos Kolaches.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't realize those two were related.
Dos Gatos means two cats,
right.
And it's the Katz brothers.
Ah, now I get it.
Clever, right? All right, a little local plug for them, too.
Yeah.
Any plans for some future menu items on the drawing boards for you?
That's a good question. I would love to do bowls. We just have a very small kitchen, and I've kind of joked with people that, well, maybe we could just not do sandwiches and do bowls. And they're like, not do sandwiches. You're a sandwich shop. What are you talking about? But the sandwiches are the choke point in terms of, we're kind of a little bit notorious for not being very fast. But that's because the sandwiches take a long time. They have to be grilled. So they sit there on the panini press for 10 minutes. So, you prepare them, and then you still got to do things to them when they come off. If we could just get rid of that whole operation, then we could make all these fabulous bowls. But because that's how I like to eat. Like at home, I did it yesterday. I made like a kind of a fiesta bowl, with black beans and avocado and brown rice. And it's just, to me, the easiest way to eat healthy is, you take your grains, whether it's quinoa and rice mixture, you get your lentils and beans going, and vegetables.
Yeah, and you can get all the components, right? You get your whole grain, your greens, your beans, and then throw in some extra vegetables.
But I look around our little kitchen and I'm like, where are we going to do all this? We're too busy making sandwiches.
Now you have something similar, though, because you have a quinoa salad.
Yes. In the quinoa salad, we make quinoa, and then we add in raw zucchini, little bits, and apple bits, and we make a very simple citrus dressing that has no oil in it. And so we put all that together, and that's our quinoa salad per se. But when you order a quinoa salad, you actually get like a full salad, a bed of greens with avocado and tomato, and then we put a big scoop of that on the top. So yeah, if you wanted something along those lines, then the quinoa salad's, it's quite good. And you can add that to other things. And you can even get it as a side. So some people do that. They're trying to supplement their meal.
Good to know.
So like you could get the BLT, the vegan BLT, and then you could have a little quinoa on the side in case you thought you wouldn't be full or something.
Yeah, right. I already have so many ideas. I'll probably be down there next week. I have just, when I was looking at your menu in preparation for the episode and then just talking about all of this, I'm like, okay, I want all of it. Can I order them all at once? That's too much.
I do need to plug the vegans, the plant-based sandwich that is the least ordered and actually, in my opinion, the best one. So we have we just call it the vegetarian sandwich. And it's got just tons of great stuff on it, but it does have cheese. So it's, it's lettuce, tomato, but it's also cucumbers and avocado. And so instead of cheese, we just substitute hummus, and it tastes really good. So people kind of see it and they think, oh, well, the BLT sounds more exciting, or the chickpea salad sounds more filling, and it is. But if you get a whole, vegan version of the vegetarian sandwich, it's plenty, and it tastes really good.
Get a smoothie on the side and you're
definitely going to be full after that. Well, and then a brownie.
And a brownie.
We also have thumbprint cookies that we make that are plant-based. So they're like, very simple in terms of number of ingredients.
What do you use as your egg substitute in your desserts?
So zucchini is the egg substitute. The thumbprint cookies don't have any kind of egg type because they're, kind of a very simple cookie. It's like almond flour, maple syrup, coconut oil, and then there's some jam like where the thumbprint dent is.
I tried using the water from the can of chickpeas. It's called aquafaba.
Right.
And it's highly touted as a great egg substitute for baking. And we made oatmeal cookies with it. I did an episode with my sister where we tried out a whole bunch of different alternative meats. We tried Beyond and Impossible, and we had a whole taste testing thing.
Mm.
And one of the things we made were these oatmeal raisin cookies with the aquafaba. And it worked well. It didn't fluff up as much. They kind of spread out a lot. So it held together nicely, but it did give it a different texture. But the flavor was great.
Yeah. And part of the challenge I'm having with the baked items is the same issue with the bread, is that I want them all to be gluten-free. So they're all in the same case. And the people that are super sensitive, they don't want any cross-contamination of any kind. So, we don't throw in a non-gluten-free baked item with everything. So everything in there is gluten-free. So it means, well, if we're making a plant-based dessert, it's got to be gluten-free. And so it gets tricky.
Mm-hmm. Even your panini press for the people who are really sensitive because you've been toasting non-gluten-free bread. I know that was the issue with my family member.
Yeah. So sometimes with that, basically what we do is we just throw it in the oven and we toast it that way.
It's good to know that there's an alternative for people who know that they are so sensitive.
I will say that there are people with legit celiacs who eat there who don't have a problem. And my theory is, I'm not a scientist, but we don't have flour. Like if you go to a pizza restaurant and get a gluten-free pizza, there's flour flying all over the place. So the fact that there might be a breadcrumb from the non-gluten-free bread somewhere in the vicinity, it's much less likely than the fine particles that are, all over the place.
Good point. Anything that we left out that you wanted to throw in?
I would just reemphasize that, and I guess this is what you do in your podcast. I've tried a lot of different ways to be a, quote, healthy eater over the many years. And it really is the whole foods part of it that matters. I'm no longer 100% plant-based. I did eat that way for a couple of years, but one of my difficulties was I was so busy trying to make sure I was 100% plant-based that I would end up eating French fries or I would make very poor choices in terms of what was actually healthy in an effort to be 100% pure. And I do like to eat out a lot. So it would happen constantly. My wife and I would go somewhere and it's like, well, I guess I'm getting French fries. And either that or just a salad that's just lettuce.
It is challenging. And that's why I really appreciate you taking your time to come and talk to me about what you offer at Naturally Café, because people don't know that there are places that they can go that offer whole food, plant predominant or plant forward items that make a big difference. They aren't left with, the side salad with some fries or, even the green beans and things like that at many restaurants have bacon and it's hard. So that's the motivation that I have for having this series where we highlight local restaurants that just like Naturally Café. And so you guys are killing it and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You bet. It was a pleasure.
Well, there you go. Now that you know all about the mouth-watering healthy dishes on the menu at Naturally Café, I hope you'll give them a try next time you're in Green, Texas. The restaurant website is in the show notes. I can't wait to get back there again myself and try the vegetarian sandwich or maybe a chunky monkey smoothie and a decadent brownie. I'm drooling just thinking about it. And hey, while you're perusing the show notes for the restaurant link, scroll down and hit those 5 stars to review the show. If you want an alert when a new episode of Eat Your Greens drops, go to my website, www.eatgreenswithdrblack.com, scroll down to the bottom of any page and subscribe. You'll get a free guide full of easy tips for making healthy changes to your diet. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to eat your greens. Please be aware that this podcast provides general health information about nutrition and feeding of infants and children and is meant for educational purposes only. It's not intended to replace the important relationship between a parent, child, and pediatrician. If you have concerns about your child's nutrition, health, or growth, please consult your doctor.